Letter the 18th. The Pioneer, July 1852, 4th of July Festival, Spanish attacked. From our log cabin, Indian Bar, July 5th, 1852. Our 4th of July celebration, dear M, which came off at Rich Bar, was quite a respectable affair. I had the honor of making a flag for the occasion. The stripes were formed of cotton cloth and red calico, of which last gorgeous material no possible place in California is ever destitute. A piece of drilling taken from the roof of the Humboldt, which the rain and the sun had faded from its original somber hue to just that particular shade of blue which you and I admire so much, served for a union. A large star in the center covered with gold leaf represented California. Humble as were the materials of which it was composed, this banner made quite a gay appearance floating from the top of a lofty pine in front of the empire to which it was suspended. I went over to Rich Bar at 6 a.m, not wishing to take so fatiguing a walk in the heat of the day. After breakfast, I assisted Mrs. B and one of the gentlemen in decorating the dining room, the walls of which we completely covered with grapevines, relieved here and there with bunches of elder blow. We made several handsome bouquets and arranged one of syringes, white lilies, and the feathery green of the cedar to be presented in the name of the ladies to the orator of the day. You can imagine my disgust when the ceremony was performed to observe that some officious Goth had marred the perfect keeping of the gift by thrusting into the vase several ugly purple blossoms. The exercises were appointed to commence at 10 o'clock, but they were deferred for half an hour in expectation of the arrival of two ladies who had taken up their abode in the place within the last 6 weeks and were living on Indian Bar Hill. As they did not come, however, it was thought necessary to proceed without them, so Mrs. B and myself were obliged to sit upon the piazza of the Empire, comprising in our 2 persons the entire female audience. The scene was indeed striking. The green garlanded hills girdling Rich Bar looked wonderfully beautiful, rising with their grand abrupt outlines into the radiant summer sky. A platform reared in front of the Empire beneath the banner tasseled pine and arched with fragrant fir boughs made the prettiest possible rustic rostrum. The audience grouped beneath the awnings of the different shops, dressed in their colored shirts, though here and there one might observe a dandy miner who had relieved the usual vestment by placing beneath it one of calico or white muslin, added much to the picturesqueness of the scene. Unfortunately, the Committee of Arrangements had not been able to procure a copy of the Declaration of Independence. Its place was supplied by an apologetic speech from a Mr. J, who will without doubt be the Democratic candidate for state representative at the coming election. This gentleman finished his performance by introducing Mr. B, the orator of the day, who was the Whig nominee for the above-mentioned office. Before pronouncing his address, Mr. B read some verses which he said had been handed to him anonymously the evening before. I have copied them for your amusement. They are as follows, and are entitled, "A 4th of July Welcome to the Miners." Ye are welcome, merry miners, in your blue and red shirts all. Ye are welcome mid these golden hills to your nation's festive all. Though you've not shaved your savage lips, nor cut your barbarous hair, ye are welcome, merry miners, all bearded as you are. What though your brows are blushing at the kisses of the sun, and your once white and well-kept hands are stained a sober dun? What though your backs are bent with toil, and ye have lost the air with which ye bowed your stately heads amid the young and fair? I fain would in my slender palm your horny fingers clasp, for I love the hand of honest toil, its firm and heartfelt grasp. And I know, O miners, brave and true, that not alone for self have ye heaped through many wearying months your glittering pile of pelf, ye of the dark and thoughtful eyes beneath the bronzed bough, ye on whose smooth and rounded cheeks still gleams youth's purple glow, ye of the reckless daring life, ye of the timid glance, ho, young and old, ho, grave and gay, to our nation's fate advance. Ho, sun-kissed brother from the south where radiant skies are glowing. Ho, toiler from the stormy north where snowy winds are blowing. Ho, Buckeye, Hoosier from the west, sons of the river great. Come, shout Columbia's birthday song in the new golden state. Ho, children of imperial France. Ho, Erin's brave and true. Ho, England's golden bearded race, we fain would welcome you. And dark-eyed friends from those glad climes where Spain's proud blood is seen, to join in freedom's holy psalm, ye'll not refuse, I ween. For now the banner of the free is in very deed our own, and mid the brotherhood of states, not ours the feeblest one. Then proudly shout, ye bushy men with throats all brown and bare. For lo, from midst our flag's brave blue leaps out a golden star. End of poem. After reading the above lines, Mr. B pronounced beautifully a very splendid oration. Unlike such efforts in general, it was exceedingly fresh and new, so that instead of its being that infliction that 4th of July orations commonly are, it was a high pleasure to listen to him. Perhaps where nature herself is so original, it is impossible for even thought to be hackneyed. It is too long for a letter, but as the miners have requested a copy for publication, I will send it to you in print. About half an hour after the close of the oration, the ladies from the hill arrived. They made a pretty picture descending the steep. The one with her wealth of floating curls turbaned in a snowy nubia and her white dress set off by a crimson scarf, the other with a little Pamela hat placed coquettishly upon her brown braided tresses and a magnificent Chinese shawl enveloping her slender figure, so lately arrived from the States with everything fresh and new. They quite extinguished poor Mrs. B and myself, trying our best to look fashionable in our antique mode of 4 years ago. The dinner was excellent. We had a real live captain, a very gentlemanly person who had actually been in action during the Mexican War for president. Many of the toasts were quite spicy and original. One of the new ladies sang 3 or 4 beautiful songs, and everything passed off at Rich Bar quite respectably. To be sure, there was a small fight in the bar room, which is situated just below the dining room, during which much speech and a little blood were spouted. Whether the latter catastrophe was caused by a blow received or the large talking of the victim is not known. 2 peacefully inclined citizens who at the first battle shout had rushed manfully to the rescue returned at the subsiding of hostilities with blood-bespattered shirt bosoms, at which fearful sight the pretty wearer of the Pamela hat, one of the delinquents being her husband, chose to go faint and would not finish her dinner, which, as we saw that her distress was real, somewhat marred our enjoyment. On our way home, half a dozen gentlemen who preceded us stepped in front of a cabin full of infant phenomena and gave 9 cheers for the mother and her children, which will show what a rarity those embodiments of noise and disquiet are in the mountains. This group of pretty darlings consists of 3 sweet little girls, slender, straight, and white as ivory wands, moving with incessant and staccato. Do you remember our old music lessons activity, which always makes me think of my hummingbirds? About 5 o'clock, we arrived at home just in time to hear some noisy shouts of "Down with the Spaniards," "The Great American People Forever," and other similar cries, evident signs of quite a spirited fight between the 2 parties, which was in reality taking place at the moment. 7 or 8 of the elite of Rich Bar, drunk with whiskey and patriotism, were the principal actors in this unhappy affair, which resulted in serious injury to 2 or 3 Spaniards. For some time past, there has been a gradually increasing state of bad feeling exhibited by our countrymen, increased, we fancy, by the ill treatment which our consul received the other day at Acapulco towards foreigners. In this affair, our own countrymen were principally to blame, or rather, I should say, Sir Barleycorn was to blame, for many of the ringleaders are fine young men who, when sober, are decidedly friendly to the Spaniards. It is feared that this will not be the end of the fracas, though the more intelligent foreigners, as well as the judicious Americans, are making every effort to promote kindly feeling between the 2 nations. This will be very difficult on account of the ignorant prejudices of the low-bred, which class are a large proportion of both parties. It is very common to hear vulgar Yankees say of the Spaniards, "Oh, they are half-civilized black men." These unjust expressions naturally irritate the latter, many of whom are highly educated gentlemen of the most refined and cultivated manners. We labor under great disadvantages in the judgment of foreigners. Our peculiar political institutions and the prevalence of common schools give to all our people an arrogant assurance which is mistaken for the American beau ideal of a gentleman. They are unable to distinguish those nice shades of manner which as effectually separate the gentleman from the clown with us as do these broader lines which mark these 2 classes among all other nations. They think that it is the grand characteristic of Columbia's children to be prejudiced, opinionated, selfish, avaricious, and unjust. It is vain to tell them that such are not specimens of American gentlemen. They will answer they call themselves gentlemen, and you receive them in your houses as such. It is utterly impossible for foreigners to thoroughly comprehend and make due allowance for that want of delicacy and that vulgar, quote, I'm as good as you are, end of quote, spirit, which is, it must be confessed, peculiar to the lower classes of our people, and which would lead the majority of them to enter a palace with their old felt hat on, to address the king with the title of Mr., and ask him the price of the throne he sat on. The class of men who rule society in the mines are the gamblers, who for the most part are reckless, bad men, although no doubt there are many among them whose only vice is that fatal love of play. The rest of the people are afraid of these daring, unprincipled persons, and when they commit the most glaring injustice against the Spaniards, it is generally passed unnoticed. We have had innumerable drunken fights during the summer with the usual amount of broken heads, collarbones, stabs, etc. Indeed, the Sabbaths are almost always enlivened by some such merry event. Were it not for these affairs, I might sometimes forget that the sweet day of rest was shining down upon us. Last week, the dead body of a Frenchman was found in the river near Missouri Bar. On examination of the body, it was the general opinion that he had been murdered. Suspicion has as yet fallen upon no person.